You got this and you got that, and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast, where you know it's me and my only friends, which includes, but is not limited to, Sir Guapito. What is poppin', my fella?
I might have done the nittiest thing I've ever done in my entire life.
Clean the garage, put your car in?
Made a big breakfast yesterday. And I poured myself a glass of milk. With
Burrito?
It was a breakfast. It was a breakfast burrito.
Was this before or after you mowed the lawn?
Anyways, I ate my entire breakfast, had my big old glass of milk, and I still had milk left in the cup.
Okay.
So instead of throwing it away,
You can't tell everybody this, man. You on like this is on YouTube. This is never gonna go away. In the last 2 weeks,
Hey man, the guy is not wasteful. What's wrong with that?
God, it's backwash.
Bro, you are...
Yeah, but if he's the only one drinking it,
How do you know he's the only one drinking it?
because he lives alone.
that's right.
I think he's the only one drinking it.
Okay, can we talk about how you are a grown fucking man drinking glasses of milk?
There's a whole other issue here.
What the fuck is going on? What are you, 16 and going
Milk is
through a
great.
growth
It's good for your
spurt?
bones, man.
I mean, yeah.
A lot of protein in there.
Well, not a lot. There's
some,
some.
But it does have protein.
Calcium.
Calcium, yeah.
You know, I didn't drink milk
Milk's fine.
ever.
Why?
I never liked it.
I loved it when I was a kid.
Yeah, I didn't like it as a kid.
I didn't like water.
Chocolate milk. I kind of like. I can deal with,
Ooh, I
but
could fuck with some chocolate.
never liked milk. Never was a fan of drinking it.
I put a little milk in my coffee every morning.
That's the only place I'll put it.
Yeah.
Or like cream or whatever, half an ounce.
I don't even know why it's so frowned upon as a grown person to be drinking a glass of milk, but something about this feels wrong.
Because you just think about fucking Santa Claus and his cookies and milk and shit.
I'm just picturing Guapo in his kitchen, pouring the milk back into the with a giant milk mustache, just pouring it back into the
I actually
bottle.
deliberated just not doing it, and I'm just like, oh, fuck it. Just do it.
Out of a sippy
what did
cup,
you
too.
eat that milk was the choice?
Oh,
Eggs.
man. Eggs, bacon, toast.
That's already so heavy.
I gotta tell you, it's better than a giant glass of orange juice.
Milk was a
What?
terrible choice.
What do you mean, what?
What did you just say?
I mean,
said-
orange juice tastes better.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
orange
not,
juice has a
not,
shit ton of sugar.
no, not
Yeah.
not
Oh, in
taste wise.
that
I
case,
mean,
okay.
you know, nutritional.
Okay, fucking Huberman. Let's tone it down a notch here.
I'm just saying. Do you really want to
Attitude.
start your day with a giant glass of sugar?
No, of course not. But it's a respectable drink choice with breakfast.
All of a sudden,
milk is
All of
not.
a sudden, milk is not.
I think people drink milk with breakfast. I think people do that.
I need to
I
know.
also
Case in point.
We need to ask the
I
chat.
also think people drink milk with breakfast. They're usually 5 and drinking it through a sippy cup.
How do you know he's not still growing?
Yeah, this is also true. Almost 50, and I think I might still grow another inch.
The milk fucking threw me, man. I didn't see this one taking a turn there.
Why
And-
self-report though? I don't understand.
Well, it's good for the pod. He knows
for the
it's,
pod.
It's content.
we're a little light on content today.
Yeah.
He respects it. I mean,
Right.
he tried to get us early on the Hawk 2 girl. I mean, he sent us that like 5 days ago. It's just going viral
It
today.
is- it's,
I don't even think I see
you
it.
can't
You got a
avoid
Hawk 2 on that thing.
it. You really can't
Oh,
avoid
is this
it.
like the toothless thing?
No, she's hot as fuck.
Whatever you do, don't put it in your phone or you're screwed.
yeah, it's
Right.
It
just
doesn't matter. It's the only thing on the internet today. I opened
Yeah.
up Twitter. I hadn't clicked on anything, and my entire timeline is just Hawk 2 in that thing.
yeah.
Just top to bottom, everybody's memeing it. It's fucking fantastic. Bad day for Melissa not to make it. Oh man, she would really appreciate the Hawk 2 meme. If ever there's somebody to appreciate it, it's Melissa Schubert.
Man.
We have a fun show today. We got a little bit to catch up on in the poker world. 2 new bracelets doled out yesterday. I think one was a first time winner. That was Huni's first, yeah?
Yep.
That was Huni's first. Congrats.
Yeah, big shout out to Big Huni. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. We also have Conrad in the muck. It's just a pre-flop spot, but it's one to talk about.
I'm fucking shitty right now. I'm so annoyed.
Yeah.
It's just an annoying spot.
Sounds like you didn't win.
And it doesn't matter. I don't think that I'm even in the wrong.
How come when people are in the muck, they never win the hand?
I'm just annoyed.
It's not true. We've
not
had
true.
a lot of
I was just trying to
the
give you
muck
some
submissions
content.
where they actually won the hand. They just didn't know if they got a failure, if they should have called, or they did this.
No tortoise. No tortoise in the mucks where you won the hand.
Never.
No.
Never.
A lot of bad beats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Few real punts.
Right.
There were a couple, honestly, like you and Guapo, there were a couple that you guys submitted where it's like, hey, congratulations for coming forward with that one. I probably wouldn't have even told my friends that in history. But
Listen,
respect.
It's the only way you can get better.
That's true.
Right?
That is true.
You gotta eat a nice, giant, humble piece of pie.
You know, this is something to talk about, I think.
Something else you can drink milk with, by the way.
A little humble pie, a little slice of, a little putang pie.
Easy.
Wait, easy. That took a turn.
This is
Hawk 2 one.
That's right. If you ain't hawk tooing, you ain't doing it right. You know, you gotta have the knife, fork, and a little hawk too.
It's Friday, isn't it?
That's right.
It is Friday.
Something that's come up in conversation quite a bit over the last week or so, for a few reasons I can't be too specific about, but have you guys ever, like, you know, lost a hand or played a hand?
I have.
Where you got took a beat or whatever the case was, and then immediately felt obligated to like talk to the group about it, like via text or in conversation, whatever, and then just skew the details, like for whatever reason.
I used to do that.
I've done it before.
I used to do maybe like, maybe I just tweak something, and then I realized that's just a detriment to myself, to me getting better, and I haven't done that in a long time.
I don't tweak like the bet sizes or like the cards on the board, but I do tweak like, well, this is what I was thinking. It's like, actually,
Sure.
I wasn't thinking that. I'm just trying to justify why.
That's
I did
actually the entire
what I did.
impetus behind Poker Out Loud is to remove that level of bias, because secondhandedly, like you'll just change what you actually were thinking. It's impossible not to.
Right.
I ask because I've heard maybe a half dozen hands in the last week or so, like second-handedly, or first-handedly from the person who was involved, where second-handedly I would hear the hand again, and some very major detail was changed. One in particular was, well, actually twice it happened by the same person. The whole cards were changed.
Oh, wow.
That's big.
So one went from like a really reasonable holding pre-flop to a very unreasonable one. The other one went from like offsuit to suited.
Yeah.
Little minor tweaks, but tweaks nonetheless.
Yeah, I think kind of like people do that. It's like a psychological thing where it's like you probably misplayed the hand, which led to you like the result of the hand happening and something bad happening. You knocked out of the tournament, lost a big pot in cash. But you feel like you got unlucky. Like you misplayed it, so you trick yourself into saying like, well, I'm just going to like tweak it so it really looks like I got unlucky when in reality is I misplayed it and I don't want to like, be honest with myself.
Quite honestly,
and say that I misplayed this
I think
hand.
this happens to most people in poker in the beginning stages.
I think at some point in your career this happens. For sure.
Whether you're down on something, you're not feeling great about your play or something like that, and just like whether you're explaining to one of your friends, your back, or whatever the case may be, I think that this happens a lot, and like it's just something you have to get over in poker because it's the only way you can get better.
So I agree with it. So I can speak from my perspective, but I want to hold off on that because it's maybe a little bit more psychotic than what most people do. I mean, there was some real mental fucking hurdles that or mental gymnastics that went into me reporting hand injuries. But like now as somebody who's kind of graduated out of that phase and does a lot of coaching and things of that nature, it's interesting to me because I'm unsure the response that they're trying to provoke, right? So the reason to change the details is obviously to manipulate the outcome from who you're telling the hand to. And
the outcome of the hand, or the response that you get?
The outcome being the response that you get from the person you're telling it to. And this is what's really funny to me is that so a couple of these hands that I'm telling you were misreported or whatever, I only know that they were misreported because the same person told the same hand history to multiple people with different told the truth to one person and a small exaggeration to the other. And so I wonder what response you're attempting to elicit, right? It's unclear to me when it is trying to elicit compassion or empathy for the spot versus trying to replay the hand better than you felt like you played it in real time to try to get confirmation that like you're able to identify your mistake.
Right. So if you're talking to a significant other, right, you make it look like you're very unlucky, so they have compassion for you. When you tell it to like a peer, then you just be like, skew it to make it sound like you play the hand great.
Right. So like,
you just want your friend calling you an idiot. That's really what it comes down to in the spot.
I don't know, because I mean, like, well, I agree with you in the sense that oftentimes people will tell a hand history hoping that your friend will say the other person's an idiot. Of like, oh wow, that's really bad, and like that's the feel good moment of like, okay, he played it like shit, so whatever I did thereafter is like fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. It's no big deal. But
a lot of cope.
Yes, a lot of cope. But like what I'm more so speaking to, and this is something that I used to do a lot when I was young, like when we were in Erie and when we first moved out to Vegas, especially because I was always bankrolling tables, so I'm always over risked.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to justify that by, demonstrating edge and luck and stuff like that. But when it would come down to trying to, like, if I thought I misplayed a hand, I would change the details to how I thought the hand should be played and then try to get feedback on that. And for me, that was actually like kind of part of the learning process, because what you could then do is test, right? So if you say the detail according to like how you thought it should have been played, and your friend's just like, yeah, that's just unlucky, pretty standard. You're like, oh, okay. Well, what if instead of X, I would have done Y in this spot? What do you think about that? And now your friend is just like, oh, that's terrible. It's like, okay, well, now you got the criticism on what you actually did without actually losing the respect of your peer.
Right.
And like that was always the driving force behind. I never wanted to be judged for the already bad decisions that I've committed to. Like I've already committed to being overextended in these games and to be way too at risk. So I don't need the speech again about like, see, this is why you can't sit with your bankroll on the table. So it's like, okay, if I already know the root cause problem and we're actually just trying to address some stuff in the middle, I would jump through like mental hoops of like, okay, so I'm going to say that I actually 3-bet this hand instead of flatting it pre, and then I'm just going to tell the hand history as played that way, and then people will just be, oh, that's super standard. Be like, oh, okay, well, would you ever consider flatting pre in that spot? And like, no.
I see what's going on here.
they're like, no.
Berkey's
and
a fucking liar.
Well, why not flat pre there? And then you kind of like go through the what's the word I'm looking for? Like whenever you're forcing people to like steel man both sides, you know? So you kind of like get to have the debate without it actually being contentious because you're not defending anything.
Right.
It's like going to the doctor and telling the doctor you have a friend. He said it hurts when he pees. I have a friend who's pissing razor blades. What do you think I should suggest to him?
I don't know. I find it fascinating. It's especially interesting now because there's so many tools where you can actually get kind of objective feedback. We didn't have that.
Yeah, right. You had to go to your friends. Now you can just go to the wizard.
Right.
The wizard's not going to they're
not going to judge you.
Yeah, they're not going to judge you. They're just going to give you the correct answer. They're not going to be like, you idiot.
It depends. Well, if it makes it onto the muck or not.
Yeah, blunder.
It's
Fuck.
true.
That's not how I played it.
There's a lot of cope that goes into running these things. It happened to Landon the other day. We were talking about a spot, and I can't remember. I don't even think he was involved. He was just doing his high horse thing.
And he just started painting.
And he's like, I'm going to go running. And I was like, buddy, I really don't think we need to look at a sim for this one. It's just very clear that this is a gigantic error. And he's like, whoa, I think that's pretty arrogant of you not to run a sim. It's like, all right, well, a guy just peeled a 3-bet off of 17 big blind or 14 big blinds, whatever, where he should just have 0 calls. What exact inputs are you going to fucking give him that are more accurate than whatever I'm saying as the observer here? Where it's just like, I think this is a big misconception that has fostered over the last 5 to 8 years, especially with the way that game theory was kind of introduced to the community as a whole. It wasn't a gradual process, right? Like we should have, when Mathematics of Poker was written way back in like 2009 or whenever Bill Chen and those guys released it, like that should have been the first introductory lesson into game theory. We should have all been like trying to better understand the math, but nobody gave a shit, right? There was nothing pretty to look at on a screen. There were no visuals to attach to, and it was just kind of like, yeah, there's math. Fuck math. And truthfully, if everybody agrees to say fuck math, it kind of is just like, well, fuck math, you know?
Right.
So we kind of like skipped over the introductory phase, and then immediately it was the robots are coming for us, right? It was just a doomsday. It was very
doom and gloom.
Super doom. Like whenever Jonda first released his book and Pio was starting to catch a little bit of popularity, it was and on top of that, talk about terrible timing. Immediately, suddenly, we're seeing Carnegie Mellon build these bots. So I can't remember what the first one was, but Liberatus was the second one that actually ended up beating the pros heads
Pluribus.
up. Pluribus was the multi-way one that came after the fact.
Okay.
But there was one prior to Liberatus that Polk and those guys were actually able to defeat. We just like immediately go to, oh, it's over.
Yeah,
it's over. They've built AlphaGo for poker now. And you'll never do better than the machine, so stop trying. And the way now that we were introduced to the framework of theory is that it's rigid and that it's very fixed, right? Like whatever is being input to these algorithms that allow a machine to just conquer humans is the end-all be-all. That's the perfect strategy, and all we can hope to do is get as close to it as possible. The issue with that is it doesn't take into account the variable nature of no limit hold'em, right? Like this is more so true in fixed limit.
Yeah.
Like heads up limit hold'em is pretty solvable because there's just very little that can be done. It's a very equity driven.
The game tree is way less. Way less branches.
Way less.
Right.
And it's also just like very much rooted in equity, right? So you can, we as humans can understand the mathematical complexity or lack thereof of raw equity, right? We can't really fully comprehend what goes into an EV calculation. And the big difference here is not that EV isn't a thing in limit, it's more so that like there's no real need to calculate like fold equity, for example, right? And that's a huge variable in an EV calculation. How can I win the pot uncontested? Limit, that's not really much of a factor. You're just going to be going to showdown. It's a showdown-driven game. So the actual theory around it is very much bundled in raw equity and, making and saving bets depending on where you fall in the equity distribution of your range. So now that we get into this doom and gloom phase of theory where it's so rigid that there is a perfect way to play and that some machine out there knows how to do it, so we must defer to the overlords and follow it as rigidly or as closely as possible. It's completely ignoring that at the root node, preflop, we can just completely throw a monkey wrench into the entire game tree. So the reason why heads up was the first introduction to it, and the reason why it functioned, i.e. the machine beat the pros, is because the root node can't get fucked with that much. There's only 2 players, right? So you actually do have an equilibrium. If player A is opening a button range of X%, there's a perfect response to that. And if he now tightens or loosens that range, you don't really have to move off of the equilibrium response. You'll just gain EV based off of him being too wide or too loose, right? So you can solve heads up, no limit hold'em pre-flop ranges for certain depths, probably for all depths in quote unquote theory, but we had the computing power to solve it up to certain depths, where you can't do better pre by adjusting one way or the other, right? That all goes out the window whenever you're playing a ring game because everything is interdependent, right? So if the under the gun guy is only playing aces, that impacts the 8 ranges behind him.
Yeah.
Anytime that he doesn't fold, right? And because of that, now people miss the mark in understanding that when we talk about quote unquote in theory, what we're truly saying is in general, right? In a general state of what we're capable of studying, the strategy will be this, that, or the other. And what gets overlooked is that you're almost never playing in a general state.
Right. Nobody's playing perfect ranges pre-flop.
Not even close.
Not even close.
Right. So if the root node is broken, right, because you have all these things that
everything
happen,
after that completely changes.
The shift afterwards, people just can't conceptualize.
Just look at the different outputs that we get when we're doing in the muck. Right? It's just like, well, he just never has these hands in his 3-bet range or his 4-bet range or his calling, his flagging range. So you paint it all off, and then like the whole strategy
changes.
Everything changes.
Right. And what most people will say, like what most smart people will say, or studied players, especially people who are accustomed to a kind environment like online, is they'll say, that's a dirty sim. That's garbage in, garbage out. Right. But
when you start painting or when you don't paint?
When you do.
When you do paint.
Yeah, because the foundation of theory is to try to fix as many of the variables to constant as possible, right? So that's why we have pre-flop ranges. GTO Wizard has a whole catalog of them.
If you're new to say something like GTO Wizard, would you say it's better to just not go into the painting stage first and then just...
I think the amount of people qualified to paint ranges, so to speak, is very few and far between. And I'm not even positive that I fall into the category of qualified. I mean, I'd like to think that I do because
you are, because like it's not that much difference. Like, yes, you're just taking what the scenario is and painting it.
Right,
like,
but that's not why I'm disqualifying people. Anybody can observe their environment and make assumptions.
Okay.
Right? That's not what qualifies or disqualifies you from painting.
What does?
It's analyzing thereafter. Okay. Right? It's understanding how much of a shift occurred from the theoretical strategy if we were in a vacuum where all things are perfect compared to the assumptions that you're making now off of the environment that you're playing in. And then doing so much testing along that spectrum, right? When we quickly go through it in Wizard, the biggest reason why we paint is so that Landon and I can anticipate what the new strategy will be. Yeah. Because if we're close to right, then we have a comprehension of how these variables are impacting the output.
Right. And that's very important.
Right. And that's why I would say like few people are qualified to just like paint. Yeah. Right. Because a big aspect of the painting is understanding the underlying algorithm and how it's going to affect the outputs. Right.
I think that's why you shouldn't paint for it. You should understand how the theory works in general first, right? So like once you can see that and then understand how exploits like work off of, when people deviate, then you can start painting, and then you can see like, oh, okay, well if I lop off this part of his range, this should happen. But you can't get there unless you understand the baseline theory first.
That made sense to me yesterday when I remember we painted the villain's response to never have raises. Yeah. And how all of a sudden, I think it was like 3 combos of whatever it was now 2 of them were doing it and 1 wasn't. And now all 3 combos were doing it.
Right. You get to be more aggressive.
We changed the villain's response. So I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And to Brian's point, like, one thing I want to qualify with what you're saying is it's actually not exploits, right? That's the way it's been framed, and that's why I'm kind of passionate about like the messaging has been so wrong for so many years because we just didn't have a full understanding of things, and again we kept defaulting back to what the term in theory means. Right. But the true definition of in theory is discovery, right? Like that's what theory is. You're theorizing, you're hypothesizing, you're testing, right? So there is no fixed strategy. There is like GTO. It's really funny. I've been harping on this from day one, and somehow I've like
come all the way back.
Well, no, I've never changed my stance. GTO is not a thing. Like game theory optimal is like the most marketed, made up term that anybody could ever come up with, because the whole purpose of optimal would mean that you're capable of fixing variables, which is just impossible in a dynamic game. So it's truly like the biggest misnomer that we push in our industry. But the irony is that I went from being the guy who like was believed to not believe in theory at all the way to the guy who's like a solver nerd in some people's eyes.
Yeah.
And my message has never changed one bit. It's just like GTO or whatever you're being sold as theoretically sound is largely nonsense. Every environment is going to have its own separate equilibrium, and it's going to be wildly different across the board. And I kind of memed this yesterday when I put a tweet out and I said, these are the way that like hand histories are analyzed. Like Twitter analyzes a hand history like this, looks at results. Oh man, I would have played that hand totally different. He clearly always does or does not have it in this spot. And I would have just responded perfectly, because that's why I'm crushing, 1 cent, 2 cent on Zynga poker right now. And then I said, like, true professionals will look at it and say like, okay, well, based off of where we fall into our range, we just have like one of our best hands in this spot. If he has it, he has it. That's just the nature of the game. We're supposed to lose sometimes. And then I said, I just look at the guy and I say, does he have a punchable face? And if the answer is yes, then I'm all in. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just incredibly critical to understand how things change. So you kind of mentioned like, well, you can't start to exploit until you understand the baseline theory. And maybe this is where we're losing so many people, because I think so many people will say like, well, game theory doesn't apply to my environment. And what they're really saying is that your inputs don't match mine, right? Like you are saying that I'm going to be facing a 15.5% opening range from under the gun. But I know Tom only opens Jacks Plus and he limps the rest of his range.
Yeah.
That's not 15%. So when I face his open, I can't 3-bet the hands you're telling me to 3-bet. And now everything is broken. Right? So like this isn't even a good guide anymore. And that's what we all preach as educators is like, oh, learn the baseline. It's so important to understand the baseline. And what the people are responding by saying is like, no, you're wrong. Because this baseline is not anywhere close to what's actually happening in my games.
It's funny because I'm sure you've had conversations with him too, but this is like what Andy's been saying for a while. Yeah. Right? He like, when we talk about solvers and stuff, he's like, well, like this is not what's going on. It's like you can just change a few things in the sim and then everything else is different.
Correct. That you can find cope in the sim. You can find whatever output it is that you're looking for. And he's right to some degree about that. The real pushback is that what you don't want to do is develop like half strategies. And I think that this is the biggest trap that a lot of entry-level players fall into, especially when they're in that 1-3, 2-5 rate, is that everybody is converging on the nuts. So ranges very quickly tighten. Even in the chat right now, somebody said, this is all BS, just play tight and play big hands. Right? That's a perfect example of the way that people believe they can hack no limit hold'em. It's like, oh, well, only a small subsection of hands make all of the fucking money. And actually that's very true. Like it's like Jacks Plus and Ace King are the only profitable hands to a measurable amount. There are a lot of other hands that win like fractions of a big blind, right? But like Jacks Plus and Ace King will make like, large percentage of pot share.
I mean, what they're saying, I think is true in some environments for a winning strategy. You might be leaving money on the table, but like there are environments where you can just implement that strategy and make money.
Well, you shouldn't be able to, right? Because what happens is the reason why these hands are making money is due to the existence of all the other hands, right? So if we recognize that only Jacks Plus are making money, why would you play deuces through tens?
Right.
You just wouldn't. You would fold.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what's being stated here. It's like, just play big hands. Big hands make money. And if you can't just play big hands, then, limp in with all the other shit. and then just try to win or lose as little as possible, yada yada yada, right? The issue with that is that without the existence of all those other hands, if everybody knew your strategy was just play Jacks plus, then they should never pay unless they can beat Jacks plus.
Right.
In which case now all of the hands that were naturally making money should no longer make money. The balance of this game is such that in order for the top to profit, a bottom must exist. So in other words, it's a game of chicken, right? But if I know that you'll never swerve, then it's just a collision.
Yeah.
And if it's just a collision, then my counter strat, the equilibrium is for us to crash. So if you're only playing Jacks plus, my response then should only be to play Jacks plus. And with every raise that goes in, we lop off more and more hands.
But that's not what happens
until
in
we
reality.
converge on aces.
Right.
Well, what happens in reality is there are some fish that just don't want to play like that.
Right.
And they're giving away enough EV that it feels worth it. However, in these small stakes, the rake is also taxing the hell out of you. So the reason, basically, this is all coming full circle to Andy basically saying, like, you can do X, Y, and Z, but at the end of the day, it's about making the nuts. It's like, to some degree, yes. But the issue is that you're learning incomplete strategies. You're actually never learning how to make more money with the top of your range. And the best way to make more money with the top of your range is to have a bottom that can force folds, right? Because if you just condition your environment to fold every time that they can't beat the strongest portions of your range, then the only thing that should be profiting now are your bluffs.
Right.
Right? Because they're just overfold. Like, fold equity is the biggest variable in the EV calculation that we truly cannot comprehend.
Right.
It's the biggest estimate, and it lacks any real clarity because we don't know what our opponent's true range is in any one
like we don't know what their equity is. Like, there's a lot of times where, like, when
they're willing to fold.
Yeah, right. And now that they're making these folds where they have like 60% equity, right, 70% equity in some, like, spots, and it's just like you're just printing at that point.
Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I'm going to share my screen real quickly and show you guys, like, what a 3x opening range looks like from under the gun and where the cutoff is of money making. So you can see that, like, Jacks plus here are all making, well over a big blind.
Yeah.
Right? So if we're playing normal, this is for 2-blind poker. So just small blind, big blind.
6 max, right?
This is a 6 max sim. Doesn't really matter, but effectively, when you're looking at, like, a low jack open, Jacks are winning slightly less than the entire pot. There's 1.5 big blinds out there. Jacks is winning 1.12 big blinds. So it's winning like 75% of total pot share. Queens is making like 125% of pot share. Kings is making like 3 times the pot, slightly less, like 2.5 times the pot. And aces is now making like 4.5 times the pot, right? So these hands are all making a ton of money. Ace King is making roughly the pot, Ace King suited is making roughly the pot. Ace King off and Ace Queen suited making roughly 1/3 of the pot, etc., etc. Ace Jack is a dead break even hand. Pocket 10s is making like 1/3 of the pot. Pocket 8s is making like 20% of the pot, maybe a little bit less, like 15% of the pot, and so on and so forth until you get like down to these smaller pairs like 6s, which is just basically a break-even hand. Same thing with suited connectors. Same thing with all of your suited aces. These hands are all making like slivers of a big blind. So why do they exist? Because if they didn't, aces would now be making like 2 times the pot instead of 4 times. Kings would now be making like 1 pot instead of nearly 3. Right? So all of these other hands are where we're quote unquote playing poker. Because you're not playing poker when you're dealt aces, kings, queens, and ace king suited. You're just getting to showdown with really good fucking hands.
Just getting dealt the nuts, and then you can do no wrong.
And that's the thing that people in these tight environments don't understand. They get dealt the quote unquote nuts like this, and then they're afraid. They're afraid that they've run into a set because they're so accustomed to the game converging onto the nuts. And where these hands are the nuts pre-flop, if enough money didn't go in, they're now no longer the nuts after the flop. And if you're playing so tight that this is the bulk of your range, then all of a sudden you lack total board coverage.
Right.
And if people are aware of that, then yes, you will start to make significantly less money with these hands, because either you're going to be conditioned to fold them post, or you're going to have to stack off a bunch every time your opponents outflop you. So think back to when you were coming up in your career and you get to play in a 2-5 game where there's an old man coffee type who doesn't VPIP very much and he 3-bets you huge. Do you ever fold your pocket pairs? No. I'll never forget this. I'll never forget this hand in my entire life. I told you it was going to happen. Rich Gannon, shout out to my man. I hope you're still kicking.
Wait, isn't that a quarterback?
No.
Rich Gannon is a quarterback. I don't know. Maybe
he played for
I think Rich is the wrong first name.
I'll tell you right now. He's in my phone.
Rich Gannon was a quarterback for the Oakland Raiders.
Right. Yeah. It's George. No. Oh man.
Oh, fuck.
You're not gonna know who it is.
No, but one of your
Pittsburgh
people's Pepsi tea, Joe or something like that.
Wait, what?
Pepsi Joe.
Pepsi Joe?
Pepsi. Yeah. What about him?
He said, "What's up?"
Oh, what's up, Pepsi? He's from Erie.
You mean Patsy?
No, it's definitely Pepsi. It's definitely Pepsi.
Pepsi from Erie.
I don't know who that is.
Brandon's friend.
I don't remember anyway.
Charity's friend.
Oh, okay. Anyway, maybe it wasn't Rich Gannon, but his last name was Gannon. I might be botching his first name. Whatever. Point was, he was the typical old man coffee type who gave way too much. Not even, honestly, looking back on it, he wasn't giving too much action. He was just doing what somebody who plays a really tight range should do. And we were playing Turning Stone in the 5-5 game. He had like $6,500 in front of him. Jesus. Immediately to my left, it was.
He always had pals.
Always had pals.
He found a way to just always have pals.
It was like a 500 or a 1K cap
at some point in the game.
Yeah, I mean, we've been playing for like 30 hours.
Yeah.
I'm immediately to his right, and I have him covered. And I literally had just told Brian, I'm going to stack Gannon. I'm going to stack him, and I'm going to go to bed. Sure enough, I get threes under the gun. He 3-bets me huge next to act, and I call. And it comes 8-3 deuce. I stack his fucking tens. He didn't even have aces. Like, he just had tens. I stack his tens in a $13,000 pot. He shakes his head, asks how I always do this to him, and then goes to bed. And I rack up and go on my merry way, right? And that's exactly what happens when your range is never protected.
Right.
I don't have to do anything creative when I make the set because I'm positive that he has an overpair. Right?
That he's not folding.
He has an overpair and he's not folding it, and nor should he.
Right.
Because if he folds his overpairs, similar to
nothing left.
Right, similar to the Vertucci hand where I bluffed him off of aces on the 997 board where I had Jack 8 or 996 where I had Jack 8, whatever, and I just ran it. If you're folding aces there and your 3-bet range is only queens, kings, aces, and ace king, then every time it comes 9-9x, you don't have a hand that makes it the showdown.
Right. That's a problem.
That's a huge problem in this game, right? So
it's why you play all those other hands.
Correct. So I know I'm probably way off of the original.
There's a point in here somewhere.
Well, there's
I promise you.
There's a lot of points. I know I'm probably strayed off of the initial concept, but to anchor it back to what I was saying is that what sparked this conversation in my mind was I kept hearing commentators say, well, in theory it does this, in theory, and I realize I do this a lot too. Landa does it a lot also, and I realize that it's such a bullshit statement, right? Because it's actually generally, like, what you're really reaching for here is generally, but you're appealing to authority by saying in theory.
Right.
What you're saying is, well, I study, and according to the machine, what we would see as an output here is X. But it's like, that's actually not true. That's only true for the default.
Right.
Right? If you're studying on default mode. And that's a great place to start. And it's something that everybody who takes this game seriously should get good at.
Default mode being no painting.
Correct. Whatever ranges are being handed to you for whatever environment it is that you're playing.
Gotcha.
Right? But like, go look at the GTO Wizard 7X opening range and tell me that looks like
what's happening.
What's happening in your environment.
It's not. It is just not.
Right, so it's just like the thing is I don't want to make I don't want to like make this sound incorrect. It's not that there's no value to that. There's a ton.
Right.
Everybody needs a starting point. If you just started by painting, you're wasting your time because your assumptions are just going to be flawed. So you do need this concrete baseline to work off of. But the real nitty gritty of how you get good at this game is seeing how it moves, right? It's being able to say like, okay, well, what if I change this variable? How's that going to impact the output? What if I change these two variables together? Is it a bigger shift on the output or is it a smaller one, right? Because it's not predictable. Like it's not linear. You can't just say like, oh, well, if I tighten his range, then it'll make the output more aggressive. Like that won't necessarily always be the case. It'll be board texture dependent. Like yes, on favorable boards, it'll make him more aggressive, but then on really unfavorable boards, he's going to be fucked and just have to protect like, you know, his over, like I wouldn't be shocked if I ran a sim where I have like 21% of hands as the raise caller and we gave Vertucci only queens, kings, and aces. On a 9-9-7 board,
he checks back.
I wouldn't be shocked if he just like tries to get the showdown.
Yeah.
And then goes for one huge street on the end.
I mean, we've seen this plenty of times on Hustler.
Yeah.
You do get to see it play out in real time.
But it makes sense because, like you said, you're not protected. So now you
have one or two choices.
Right. You can't.
You either stack off,
right,
and say if you got a 9, you got a 9,
right,
or you protect yourself by like not having to put money in early in the hand,
right. But like a lot of times when you're not protected, you can't withstand 3 streets of aggression.
Correct.
So it's
Well, you can. I mean, humans can't.
Right.
Because we'll deduce. This guy has a fucking 9 a lot. Right. And we hate the idea of like just paying. Of like, oh, he has a 9 a lot, and I only have aces.
Yeah.
But if you reframe it as what better hands do I ever have here? If I don't want to call with aces, like, do I ever have a 9? Do I ever have pocket 6s on this board? And when the answer becomes no, then it's like, well, I guess I've kind of put myself in this spot.
Yeah. You just have to play like you have to play like you're capped because you are.
Correct.
Like throughout the whole hand with the top of your range.
Correct. Yeah. I'm glad we kind of stumbled onto that because we didn't have a huge talking point today, and that one's been eating at me.
Really? I couldn't tell at all.
You know, it's weird. It's a lot of this stuff that has been really resonating with me lately is how to better communicate to the masses. And I know that 15-minute rant I just went on isn't that. You know, it's a lot of inside baseball. Like a lot of what I was just discussing, you'd have to follow along closely. And Guapo, why are we staring at Lamanna?
Because the people want to see the tortoise. Okay, maybe I just don't get enough screen time. And he's like, I'll just keep it on him for like the next 5 minutes.
He's over there.
I'm chatting with the people. Sorry,
he's over there googling. No, like it's a lot of nuance. So if you're not a regular viewer, if you're not closely following along, or if you're not thinking deeply about the game, a lot of that stuff's going to wash over you. I get that. But I've been watching more poker coverage the last 3 weeks than maybe I have in the last year combined. And I realized that like there are some really fucking great commentators out there, and then there are some really awful ones. And the biggest difference that I'm noticing is not their technical ability. It's not who would I rather back in the game.
No, it's how they put it out.
Exactly.
I can't. What's the word? Sorry.
It's how they articulate.
Yes, articulate it.
It's how they communicate to the audience, right? And the ones that are truly great are saying the thing that is like going unsaid, which is that the way you guys play and the things that you observe in your game is correct. You're adjusting correctly in accordance to what everybody around you is doing. It just lacks the context of deeper study and actual development of the true exploits. Because now when we start talking about the exploitative path, it's not about deviating from what theory would do in a vacuum if we were just given default ranges. It's about deviating from what theory would do with this new equilibrium that's presented. Okay, well, if everybody is too tight, what can I do to be looser?
People probably have a misconception of what to do. They observe what's happening in the environment, but they don't. They think, well, if this is happening, if Y is happening, then I should do X.
Yeah.
But actually, you should be doing Z. But you don't know that because you haven't like actually studied the spots.
Right. And I think that like that's like relit a fire in me of like what I want to get better at as a training site, as a podcast, as somebody in the industry, whatever the case may be, is really communicating to the masses like, you're not wrong. Like, everybody that's been telling you that you're wrong for so long, like, you're not wrong. You're just not studied, right? You are psychologically studied and you're anecdotally studied, but you just haven't gotten your hands dirty yet with figuring out how we can actually monkey wrench all these people around you who are not trying. And I think a lot of people think that the way to do that is to just play a pip tighter. Like, I'll just play a pip tighter than everybody around me who's not trying, and I'll collect all the free money from every time that they lack the discipline to fold the second nuts in a spot where it's clear somebody has the nuts. It's like, okay, that's fine, but it only takes you so far. That's not the game.
Kind of like the lazy way out.
Yeah, it's just not the game. Like that hand I posted yesterday with the queens, everybody and their mom that's playing 2-5 and below is just like, what are you doing? This is an easy fold. Obviously, he has kings plus. And it's like, maybe in your game, but like, we're trying. You know, it's like, what do you think he's doing with a pair and a flush draw?
Right.
And they're like, oh, you're flipping against that. It's like, yeah, and I'm getting laid 2-1.
That's a pretty good price.
Like, it sounds wonderful.
For a flip, that sounds like a good price.
There are environments where you just take those queens and pitch them.
Sure.
Of course.
Sure.
But the environment you are in is not that.
But also in those environments, you probably don't 4-bet them.
Right. You're right.
You
exactly.
probably don't C-bet them if you did 4-bet.
Yeah.
You know, it's
whole
like
different.
If I think the range that I'm up against is simply traps, they're like, oh, it came Jack 10 high. Obviously, it's Jacks and 10s. It's like, yeah, all he did was 3-bet and call. He has all of those hands, and then he has a plethora of others. Anything that he deemed good enough to squeeze, he probably ended up calling, because generally the way people squeeze is linear. Whether that's correct or not doesn't really matter, right? But if given the choice between squeezing King 10 suited or King Queen off, he probably picked King 10 suited more frequently. So it's like, okay, well, he's going to flop a lot of things. And, you know, you got to live with being wrong. The idea of like racing to...
And you're not dead. You're never dead.
Never. I had a backdoor straight flush draw.
Clearly you're not.
Clearly you're not dead.
He didn't even have the ace of diamonds. We could have made a royal. We could have made a royal on the second run. Straight flush first run, royal second run.
He's king.
Fuck
I
yeah.
have a question. Who's that against?
He was a fun player from the Bay Area.
Oh, okay.
That's
How
all I'll
miserable was he?
Huh?
How miserable was he?
He took a
Sounded
picture.
like he took it all right.
He took a picture?
He took it really well.
I gotta wish it was Oaken.
No.
We would have known if it was Oaken.
I don't, because he would have taken a week off, and I can't afford that.
Are we ever going to get to meet this Oaken? Is he ever gonna meet this
He needs to get on this show and
So,
defend himself.
I really wanna
Berkey's
meet
been,
this guy.
Berkey's
He
been
played
dragging
Poker
him
Out
through the
Loud.
mud for like...
He played Poker Out Loud,
Yeah.
I think, season 5. He actually fucking mopped me.
Yeah, of course.
I tried way too hard against him, and he did really well against me. But I keep asking him to come on the pod, and he goes, well, I'm camera shy.
Come on. Get in here, Oaken.
Oh, fuck you are. Honestly, I just don't think he
wear a
wants to get-
mask.
I don't think he actually wants to get trolled face to face for 45
I
minutes.
think he should come on and defend himself for you dragging his
He fucking
name through the
loved-
mud for the last year and a
He
half.
loves it. He loves that we have segments dedicated to him. He loves the lore of being like my
No,
guy.
I know, it's all in good
And
fun.
also like he also loves, and I think he knows that I'm doing it tongue in cheek, but also like I kind of mean it. When people like, because he's very easy to give shit to. He has a fucking 28-page manifesto written to the dealers that like he desperately wants everyone to see. And like every dealer that gets in the box, he corrects something. Like, could you not pause on the door card whenever you put the flop down? Okay, thank you. Like, tries to be polite about it, but also he's like a complete miserable cunt.
You should just take like one of those fucking squishy balls and just throw it at him every time he says something.
Every dealer does something that he doesn't like. Every single one of them. Like, they'll
Are
be
they
like,
actually doing something wrong, or is it an OCD thing?
They're probably doing something
the thing
annoying.
is, the rules are very loose for us, and we've all been playing for a long time. We're playing high stakes. We don't need policed by the dealer, and they're just trained into certain things. So like they'll come in, and he's always on his phone, always distracted, never putting his blinds out. And they'll go, small blind. And he'll go, dealer.
Jesus.
I don't like that.
Like they'll be like, you're the small blind. He'll be like, you're the dealer.
Jesus Christ.
I don't like that.
So he's absolutely miserable. So like, obviously he's easy to take shots at. And I'll just be like, hey, don't you fucking say a word about Oaken. We need to protect this man. We need to put him under glass and ensure that nothing bad happens to him. And I'm like, thank you. And I'm like, you're welcome. Yeah, it's a good time. Speaking of a good time, maybe up for the best celebration / rail of the year.
Unbelievable.
Got it popping.
I got to tell you.
How are you not there?
I was playing.
Oh.
I said after I bust, I would go, and he won it before.
I got to tell you, this rivals the good old days.
Man,
you and Hanks getting blacked out on my fine table rails.
Listen,
now it's just you.
There is.
I know.
There is no rail like that rail. They are insane human beings. Josh might be the best person to have at any rail.
We know that you know that we know about you knowing about us.
He's the fucking best. I love Josh.
Perhaps a bit preemptive. Maybe looking at
also, by the way, what a way to win. Poor fucking Osmus, man.
Yes, Osman got pretty lucky in this.
Thank God he's good.
He could have been out hand one to the final table.
Yeah, there's like 3 hands where
Look at that. That's amazing.
I mean, that's, he also rivered Osmus like 4 times.
Yeah,
it's funny because I was watching this at home yesterday, and Michelle had just gotten back from work, and she and like she was she doesn't know a lot about poker, but like she just saw like kind of what was going on. She's just like, that was awesome. Like she even recognized that like how great of a moment that was.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. When he had him dead when he got in King 9 versus King 8, that was over.
Yeah,
I mean, that was
also kind of a cooler.
Yeah, that was one of the best fucking like final tables, like excitement wise, like rivers, like just that the way the cards ran out. That was the most excitement I've ever had watching poker. I was so
and it was $100K, right? It was like it was a high roller. Like usually the high rollers are so prestigious and it's quiet and
not Huni.
Not
he made the 250K final table too. Same thing.
Yeah,
we all amazing. We got King 9 versus King 8. Home.
We know.
That was awesome.
We know that you know that we know about you knowing about us.
Guapo, play that shit.
What am I playing?
The clip with Josh. It is so fucking good, man. He's the best, like, just to be around. The man has been kicked out of actually everything in the country, including the country. Like,
including the country.
No, I'm dead serious. And he's been let back in everywhere. You want to know why? Because he's that dude. Josh is the best.
You'll have to send it to me, Connie. I don't have it.
Oh, man.
Yes, you do. God damn it, man. It's like we don't even have pre-production. I've set this up 3 times already.
Oh, my
Which
God.
one? I have a
the Poker Go one.
The Poker Go.
That literally says, we know that you know that we know about you knowing.
So this is...
I just sent you the link.
This is really big for Huni because I know last year his pops passed away, like mid-series.
This is so good.
We know that you know that we know about you knowing about us. So now it's over.
Yo, nobody is better than Josh. Literally nobody. But I wanted to say, this is
professional railbird.
He's the best. This is pretty big for Huni because like his father passed away last year, and like he's always mentioned like his dad wanted to see him win a bracelet and whatnot. And after last year, when his dad passed away, he didn't cash another tournament.
That's wild.
He didn't cash another tournament, and this is like he had like 3 deep runs, then didn't cash another tournament after that. So like it was a lot on him. So to watch him come out when he actually got 12th in the 5K and then win this.
Yeah,
it's huge.
Awesome.
Very happy for him.
So, yeah, me too.
Congrats, Huni.
Gotta tell you, it's apparently an important thing. I'm scrolling back through the chat now from when I was talking about theory and whatnot, and the amount of people that said Berkey hasn't even won a bracelet yet. What the fuck is he talking about? I can't believe it's 2024. I mean, I'm just dead wrong. Like this whole time, I thought, hey, we've moved on from the bracelet shit. You know, they give out fucking 190 of them a year. How hard
to be able to get one?
You would think. You would think. So yeah, I mean, he cements himself in the bracelet legacy now, which is pretty big. It's nice to do it in a high roll.
Yeah,
it's really nice. Brewer won his first one in the 250 last year. Ike won his first one in the 50K last year, I think.
50K, I want to say.
Huni was such a killer online. Like, they were showing some of his stats, and Brent pointed out yesterday, he has 7 Triple Crowns. The Triple Crown is basically winning a major on 3 different sites in a given week. And he did it 7 times.
Yeah, he has a lot of online winnings, bro.
I think Mormon holds that record. And it's something stupid, like 20.
Yeah.
It's something really dumb.
It's so hard to win one tournament, let alone 3 majors on 3 different sites in 1 week.
God, I wish I was alive in the poker world at that time.
It was so fascinating, man.
Yeah.
I didn't play 3 sites was like one of my biggest problems.
Right. Like you had to it was just like stars full tilt, and then you have to like
find your way on absolute or UB.
Or your MTT volume was there or no?
I played for 8 months, every single day.
Okay.
Every day, and I ended up. I think I
Mesa Verde days.
Yeah, so it was August of 2009 to February of 2010. I think I cashed for like around $1 million.
Okay.
And profited maybe like half of that.
Nice.
It all culminated in me chopping the full tilt major. But yeah, I had some major. There was a Tuesday 109 on Stars that we renamed the Berkey. I won it like 3 days in a row.
That's a fucking feeling.
For like 22,000 each day. It was incredible. But I was sick. Like, those were days where I was like really willing to put in the grind. I think I was like 27 or 28 at the time. I would wake up at 10 a.m. and I wouldn't go to bed until 2.
I remember you just sitting there like in the living room just playing. Like,
I was fucking locked in.
Yeah.
Just locked in.
Every day in
limping
the same
my
spot,
dick off,
just
man.
Playing, yeah.
Just limping till fucking cows came home.
Pimping.
Shit worked back then. It doesn't work now. If limping worked now, I might come back.
Yeah?
Maybe I'll try it.
Hey.
You know there's a 250K today, right?
You shut the fuck up.
What do you mean?
They wouldn't know what to do with you.
I do know there's 250K today because today's day 2 of the 5K, and Lewis is not happy that he had to skip it.
Yeah.
Lewis.
Boo-hoo.
I'm sorry, Lewis.
Poor Lewis.
Poor Lewis.
Shout out to the scarf. Don't you fucking say a word about Lewis, okay? He's another one. We must protect this man at all costs.
He's in the same glass case.
Same glass case is okay.
Time out. From Lewis's Instagram, it looks like he comes in after he busts tournaments for the night. He plays for 25 minutes. He doubles up and then he leaves. That's what the Instagram looks like.
Oh, no. He's only gotten to play one time this summer, and I'm pretty sure he lost like 60K.
No, he's won a couple times. I've definitely seen it. Maybe not your game,
wasn't with us.
Yeah.
He did get queens in versus Emma's aces for like 6 bets for like 40K each. And he goes, I mean, it's like this game is fucking rigged. And she's like, it's a 6-bet pot. I'm going to have aces. He chopped. Yep. He found a way to chop. But he won't tell you about that. No. That goes against his entire persona. You know, it's just he had queens versus aces. That's where the conversation ends.
It's funny. You guys are talking about the 250K, and the first thing I think about is pizza. Isn't Portnoy playing in that?
I don't think it happened. But we'll find out. We'll find out. It just started. Actually, it might not even start yet. It might not be until 2.
It is.
I think it's from 2 to 10. I think they play 8 hours day one.
So you can get in a little bit.
Relax, bro. we got cash to play, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, so big shout out to Huni, won his first bracelet. The other bracelet that was given away yesterday was Christopher Vitch. He won his 3rd bracelet, $262,000, won the 1K PLO event. It's really funny. I see him in Bellagio all the time playing mix. Without fail. I mean, I see him daily at the Bellagio. Without fail. Every time I see him in my peripheral, I think it's Huckseed. Like, literally,
wow,
every single day, I'm just like, what the fuck is Huckseed doing here? And I'm like, oh, that's Vitch.
Wait, that's Death Donkey, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, he has a donkey in a picture.
Yeah.
I was like, is Berkey there with him?
Yeah. Shout out, by the way, he did phenomenal commentary on Deuce to 7. Yeah. It was
I went
just
back and listened to it.
So intelligent. So well-deserved bracelet there for him. Apologies for mistaking you as Huckseed, but honestly, if I could be anybody when I grow up, it's gonna be Huckseed. Last time I saw that motherfucker, I went to do like a sprint workout with Jay Kuhn.
I
actually,
remember this.
not a sprint workout because, like, who are we kidding?
This was last summer, right?
I remember
2 summers ago, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, we went to the track to hang out, and Huck is just there, just sprinting miles.
Yeah.
I don't even want to call it, like, jogging. Like, he's sprinting miles around the track.
I thought it was a prop bet or something that he had. Or
Who knows? He's always getting paid to fucking...
The guy's a beast.
Yeah, he's always getting paid some way, shape, or form to, like, perform athletic feats. But, yeah, I mean, he's got to be, like, 55 now. Looks incredible. Just defying aging.
Age ain't nothing but a number.
Facts. Guys just out there like doing 4-minute miles for fun while we're on the sideline doing high knees with Jason and his pregnant wife at the time. It's just like, God, this is embarrassing. We got to try harder, guys. You know, this guy's 20 years our senior. He's just fucking lapping us.
Tony Horton says aging is for people who do not know better.
Okay, Tony Horton sucks the blood out of babies and infuses it himself. Like, I'm not convinced that man is not a fucking vampire.
That's what was the guy's name? That's trying to live forever.
Oh, yeah. The one who gets blood infusions from his kid?
Yeah, I don't think he does that anymore. But
his kid's too old. He's like 24 now.
No.
Blood infusions from the child?
Let's not make it sound like the kid was like 2. He was like a teenager. But
Sure.
yeah, they were swapping blood.
So that's the fountain of youth?
I don't think so. Guy, honestly, to be clear, the guy we're talking about looks like shit.
Okay.
I mean, he looks young, but he looks like fake young. Like, I think
he has somebody else's blood in him?
I think he's getting some work done, to be honest.
I think that's how Landon won his tournament yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah. Do we have a Landon update?
Action dealer.
Landon is in day 2 of the mystery bounty right now. Bounties are worth $5,300 each, so we're going to need him to collect a bunch of those.
So they're worth $56.47.
Sorry, $56.50.
Just to be clear, Landon's out there winning tournaments that don't count for the bet.
Correct. Yeah, that's actually true.
What are you doing,
we're getting dogged right now in the bet.
Yeah. What are we at here?
I think we're down about $29K.
Yeah.
Ooh, boy.
It ain't nothing that can't change today.
Yeah, it can change really quickly today. He's already in the money of the mystery bounty. It was $2,200, so he's probably
What's up
top? Not sure, but the biggest bounty is $250, so probably something around that number.
Okay, but it doesn't matter which bounty you get because I think
bounties are worth $5,650 each.
Average, the average bounty
Correct.
is worth that. So that'll be any bounty he gets.
$5,600 in our pocket.
Okay, gotcha.
And if he plucks the $250, it's $250,000 real money in our pocket.
Yes.
That only counts as $5,600 towards the bet, but that's also fine.
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, Landon has 7.5 big blinds.
Jesus Christ, man.
He got into an unfortunate spot. He got fucks.
He always does.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
He's still in. He's got life.
He does have life.
Honestly, in a bounty, 7.5, time to spin, baby.
Yeah, I mean, that's the time.
You're going to get called light.
Exactly. That's the beauty about it. Just have it.
Yeah, just have it.
Just head and hold.
Just have it and hold. All right, let's. This is going to be a really brief in the muck, but let's cut to it really quickly.
I'm finally here.
Never thought it would happen.
I'm finally here.
There he is. Finally.
And, you know, I'm just more annoyed about the spot more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
that sounds mucky.
It's a thought. Like, yeah, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should. I'm not doing any of that. I'm here to win. I'm annoyed though. All right, so we got the spot. I'm like under the gun 1, I believe it is.
What are we playing?
We are playing a daily. There's 74 people left, and 72 get paid.
Oh, so right on the bubble.
Yep. And we opened the ace king off.
Of course you have.
From under the gun 1, I believe it was. 8-handed. And the low jack, actually hijack it was, calls.
Okay.
Button sits for a minute, contemplates, looks at his hand a couple times, and he decides to rip. And now it's on me. And I'm sick to my fucking stomach. Asked for a count. I realize he has like 20K more than me. I'm sick. And I'm like, all right. I don't know what to do here. I feel like I can't fold. Like, I feel like there's some type of ICM thing that would tell me to fold ace king off and call ace king suited.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Are you rich?
No.
Okay, well, they say ICM is for poor people. So maybe fold your hand.
No, absolutely not. Because that's how I'm going to stay poor. That's how I'm going to fucking stay poor, okay? So this ace king off is going in the fucking middle. And I'm just miserable about it, man.
What are you miserable about, out of curiosity?
Probably just losing.
Is it just that you don't think he's jamming proper hands?
Yes.
Okay, so
that might be some of it, and I think like queens is absolute stone bottom. Like Jacks doesn't get
for
shoved.
value.
Yes. But I don't think there's any bluffs here. I don't think he's the one pulling the fucking...
Not taking the ace-5.
He's not taking the ace-5, the ace-queen, and he's like, hey, I got both these guys covered. Right. He didn't ask for our chip counts.
Okay.
Like, if you would have asked for our chip counts, I'm like, okay, well, fuck you, I call. Like, be really quick. Okay. But, like, it's a spot where it's like, he has no idea what's going on, so he obviously has queen plus.
Yeah, that's kind of tough.
Yeah, it's really annoying.
So, I kind of agree with you, but I don't think you can fold. Because sure, if you're narrowing his range down to like queens plus, that sucks. But also like you're flipping versus queens, you have an ace and a king, so it's like just a lot less likely that he has ace king, and also like jamming aces.
Give him a set.
Jamming aces doesn't really feel very normal. Like even a bad player is gonna find I think a 3-bet not all in.
Yep.
So like. He really just mostly has queens, and you could just be wrong about like the jacks and tens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, in the moment, I really thought that it would just be a call with jacks and tens, and he would at least, at the bare minimum, ask for a count. Because
yeah, I totally understand the read that you're making. I guess what I'm getting at is that in these spots, they're super sensitive to what the bottom of his range is, and there's way more margin of error in the bottom than there ever would be in the top. Right? Like the probability that he pure jams aces is so
slim.
Well, even if it's 100% that he does it because you're holding an ace, it's already still reducing those combinations in range, right? But the probability that he never jams jacks or tens or some sort of bluff is the error rate there, like whatever that frequency is that he's jamming tens or jacks or ace queen or ace king with you or the random cat jam ace 5, whatever, you know what I mean? Like all of those hands combined to some level of frequency that like when it's non-zero, you really get torched here by folding.
Yeah. Like honestly, I was like, maybe he's like, if he would have asked for like a count, like this is huge for me.
I actually think that that's a pretty sharp read.
This is fucking huge for me. If he would have asked for a count, I would have felt so much better. I'd be like, okay, fine, he has some bluffs here.
Yeah.
When he does not ask for a count, there's zero fucking bluffs, man. It's so tilting.
I notice this in cash sometimes when like I'm really deep with somebody else and they'll like 4-bet me. And then when we go to the flop, they'll ask to see my stack, and I'm just like, fuck you, man. I didn't know you were doing it without fucking knowing or caring how much money I had in front of me.
It's funny because like in your game, your stacks are pretty wild. Like they're not easy to count. You have to ask the person like what it is. So like when that type of situation happens, like you're really like, well, fuck you. You have aces, stupid.
So like, let's look at the sim really quickly here to see if we can kind of guesstimate how much or how sensitive this is. So honestly, you're probably opening a lot tighter than this. This is an under the gun range, assuming that the average stack is basically yours. So in this particular sim, it looks like you cover 2 or 3 of the stacks.
I'm under the gun 1, so.
Yeah, I understand, but like I was just looking for stack depths that were most replicable.
Understand. So
here I used you under the gun with 24. I used a low jack call instead of a hijack call because he has 16, which is pretty close. You had him at 17.
Yep.
And then the button rip who has you covered at 26. Okay, so cool. This is actually like pretty close, I think, to what happened in real time. You actually get to open pretty wide because you're slightly above average. It looks like in this instance, the average stack is 20. So you're slightly above, which gives you a little more freedom.
And in real life, I was like slightly above. Like this guy, he was the only person that had me covered by 2 big blinds. And like it was actually a real good spot to open a lot.
This is actually like pretty accurate then.
Yeah.
That's more of a reason why we don't really want to fold ace king.
But when they don't ask.
I get it.
I'm ready to put my head through a brick wall.
Now, obviously, like low jack just doesn't have calls. So this is like very foreign. He should just be playing all in or fold. But that probably means that he just like has a hand that was supposed to fold, like pocket pairs.
Yeah, or something like ace queen, I could see.
Maybe.
Something along those lines, like ace queen suited.
Sure.
Nines would sound really good there.
Yeah, right. Like hands that, obviously are too weak to jam.
Yep.
And he doesn't want to fold them, so he just makes the error in calling.
Exactly.
Buttons range obviously gets to be pretty tight. You do see that like a lot of this stuff obviously isn't going to exist.
Yeah.
Right? Like the King 6-0, even though it's only in there like maybe 3%, nobody's finding this. And these are also raises. So like he's just not supposed to play jam. When we look at his jam range, this is not what you
bluffs.
Right.
It's all fucking bluffs.
It's bluffs and protection.
I wasn't going to see any of these fucking hands.
Well, you'd see the ace kings.
Yeah, the
for
ace
sure.
kings, sure.
Right. But yeah, it's all bluffs and protection. So it's king queen. It's actually a sliver of jacks. And this is what I was kind of like basically saying is that it's easy to assume that their value range is what it is. But you're assuming a pretty grand error there, right? Like they're just losing value for all their value by not 3-betting non all in. But I get it. In your environment, especially like playing a daily or whatever, that's going to be the case. So now it just becomes a question of like, do they ever expand linearly? Because the second that they do, you can see that like the response here by ace king is just going to be an absolute snap call. It's pure. Like never folds. Ace queen suited is actually the point of indifference.
Yeah.
Right? Jacks is the point of indifference.
Yeah, I would have thrown jacks, I think, so far.
Agreed. I totally agree. And that's kind of what I'm getting at is that the response here, even though the range that's jamming may be a lot wider than what you're actually experiencing in real time, the response is actually still pretty similar to how you would respond.
Yeah.
Call queens plus an ace king because it's fucking ICM.
Yeah.
Right? That's why he gets to jam all these weird hands is because your response is really tight.
Mm-hmm. He should be jamming all these
Correct.
weird hands.
Yeah.
Having me covered there is like he's literally having a field day in that spot.
Right.
And like as he puts in the all in or as he's thinking about it, I'm just like, man, he's having a field day of a spot here. It goes open call and he just like has us both covered and we're 2 out of the money.
Right.
This is a fucking field day. And then that just hit me. This guy has no idea how many chips I have.
Yeah.
I'm
right.
sick.
And like if you look at instead like the small blind rejamming, who's really short and in danger, like he's putting himself at risk of bubbling. Mm-hmm. He's jamming for 13 here. You can see it's a much tighter shove range, right? But it still includes some of those Broadway hands and whatnot. Now your response, guess what? Still pretty similar. It's just going to be queens plus. I mean, you get to go a little bit wider because you cover the low jack in this instance. Right, but if we changed it from a low jack call to let's say a button call, and now this guy's jamming into two ranges that cover him, right? Like you can see how linear this shove range is. It's like just 8s plus and ace queen plus. Mm-hmm. If we look at big blind instead, it's even tighter, right? So like, let's say that the big blind jams in this particular instance, and now you're covered by the hand behind. Same thing still. Ace king just like can't fold. These hands are just like too premium, you know? So obviously like I think your read is valid, and look, if it was a big buy-in where it's 2x to cash, totally justified fold. Yeah. Right? But like you're probably playing like a 400 or 500.
Yeah, it was a daily.
And it's like $700 to cash.
Yeah, it was definitely a fold. I mean, definitely a call.
Yeah.
You have to play to win in these spots. Like.
For sure. It's the variance is just like way too high.
Like Tortoise actually has a great example of the 2x where he just mucks fucking queens to what's his name last year in the bubble or 2 years ago
in the main event.
Yeah,
that was a few years ago.
Yeah, I was like, who was that to? Oh, Colton Bloomberg.
Yep.
But it was only because he was in for $63. No, I'm not kidding. I'm being dead serious.
I
because
think $80.
It's not a 2x. Yeah, min cashing the main event is very small.
Oh yeah, it was 15.
It was 1.5
back then, and now I think it's even going to be smaller.
It was huge for him then.
Yeah,
it's going to be still 1.5 this year.
Oh, I don't. I just know that they weren't making it larger to min cash.
Yeah, you're not getting a 2x this year.
Correct.
Like you are in the other ones. You're still getting 1.5. But I won the all in flipping.
Right. So it's pure profit. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Way different. Yeah. Has to cash.
That means you have to fold. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
that's such a crazy spot.
Genuinely could probably consider folding aces because it's such a big. Yeah. It's such a big cash spot, right? You're basically playing a satellite at that point.
Right.
And, you know, if you think that you guaranteed yourself a quote-unquote seat,
right,
folding aces isn't that unreasonable.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny because, like, when we talked about it at the time, it was just like, oh, my God. Like, it was like
you're the tortoise.
Like, you're the tortoise.
This is where the tortoise is born.
Queens. Like, but it's just queens, guys.
Fuck off, man.
Jesus Christ.
Some of us are putting in $250,000 now.
All of us.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. This has actually been one of the more interesting ones to me. I really enjoyed the strategy chat. I appreciate you guys contributing. And to everybody out there who's drinking milk with their breakfast, you fucking weirdos.
go. 43% of us.
40%. It went down, buddy.
Get a fucking protein shake. God damn it. Grow up. All right. Be an adult. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also don't forget that season 11 of Poker Out Loud is now out. Episode 2 launched this past Monday. This following Monday will be Ep 3. A lot of stand-up, a lot of fantastic play. Huge shout out to Cece. She's been so fantastic in these first 2 episodes. Really looking forward to more in the future. Thank you guys. As always, we'll be back next week to bring you more WSOP updates. 10:30 a.m. Pacific. Be sure to be here on time. We'll see you guys then.
Peace.
Peace.